Hi, hi, this is Paul, and kind of a special three-way conversation today. Probably won't go on too long. With me, I've got John Van Donk and Job, and many of you know these two characters. This coming March, we are going to go on the road and do a series of meetups, basically up and down the west coast of the United States and into Canada. And so I wanted to run through some of these dates. Who actually thought this up? Was it you, Van Donk?
Right. So.
Okay. Why did you? What was behind this? Why did you want to do this?
Well, I always notice that at my meetup, when you show up, I have triple the attendance, and so clearly there are people following you who appreciate your additional input and contribution to our discussion time, and they just show up for that. And so while that may not greatly alter the ongoing life of my meetup group, which is already pretty good as it is, it's nice to get a little infusion, some new blood, some new people, and make sure that everybody knows that there's more to it than just the 4 or 5 of us. And so, yeah, to think about that then in terms of other meetup groups that may be experiencing the same thing, and I just thought it'd be great to get on the road. I love road trips anyway. So.
And Job, how did you get roped into this crazy business? I mean, you're not on the west coast of the United States.
No, I'm in the Netherlands. It has a west coast, which is tiny. John called me on the phone, unsolicited as usual. No, but sorry, I can't help but making jokes. Okay, so John called me on the phone, and we talk, and of course, all serious, interesting things. And well, John talked about this plan that apparently you two had in December of last year, but wasn't going to go because of reasons that I can't recall. So I said, well, what about March? Because I'm going to be in the US for my usual digital accessibility conference, and I'm likely going to be a speaker again, so I got to be there anyway. Maybe, I don't know why I had that idea, but then that happened, and I think a week later I had this whole email from John with a prospective plan all schemed and ready to go. So yeah, that was it's only sort of kind of really hit me that this is going to be a thing in the last couple of weeks. Like, wait a second, I'm going to be stuck with a bunch of pastors in an old Suburban for endless distances. Like, are we just going to sing these very cheesy religious songs to kill time? What are we going to do? So yeah.
So basically what we're doing, and I'll put some comments down in the notes. We're going to start in Tucson, Arizona. Some of you remember my friend Rod, who I did a video with, who told a story about a couple of old saints in his church. He has a church in Tucson. So we're going to start on Monday. You two are going to be there for worship on Sunday, March 1, correct? Okay. Yep. So at the Village, I'll put links down below. The Village in Tucson, Arizona. John and Job are going to be there Sunday night. I can't be there Sunday night because I've got to be preaching in my church on Sunday. But Monday, I'm going to fly into Tucson, and then we're going to have a meetup Monday night, March 2 in Tucson, Arizona. And then probably Wednesday-ish, we'll drive to Southern California. And Thursday evening, we'll do a meetup in Southern California, John's meetup, and I'll have links to that meetup below. We still haven't sort of filled out our calendar, and so leave comments in the section if you're in any of these places and you have some ideas or you want to get together or something like that, so we can kind of get a sense of who's where and who's what. So that's the first week, and then there's sort of a week of calm while Job justifies his trip to Southern California, and John Van Donk rests because he's an old man who gets sick often. If he runs out on this video, it's because he's ill, and we'll just have to be gentle with John. So, and then everything starts up again on March 14 in Fresno. We've had a meetup group in Fresno that's been meeting for a while and sort of connected with our Sacramento meetup. And so the Fresno group will do a meetup, and I'll swing down to Fresno, and John and Job will drive up from Southern California. And so we're going to have a meetup in Fresno on Thursday afternoon, March 14.
Friday. No, Saturday.
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 Saturday, March 14. And then Sunday, John and Job will be in Sacramento. They'll be at Living Stones for church. And then that afternoon and evening, we'll have our usual Sacramento meetup here on March 15, which is our regular meetup date in Sacramento. And then on the 16th, we'll have a meetup in Salem, Oregon at the Sunny Slope, Sunnyside CRC. Rob Tornstra, who's been on my channel, he's organizing a meetup there, so we'll do that. And then on the 17th, we will be up in Seattle and be hanging out with Trip. And so we'll have a meetup in Seattle on Tuesday the 17th. Wednesday the 18th, we'll be in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we haven't necessarily secured the location for that. The church, we have some options in terms of churches that we can get to do a meetup in. So March 18, Wednesday night, we'll be in Vancouver, British Columbia, or in that area. Thursday the 19th, we'll be in Portland again. Salem isn't too far from Portland, and we haven't really figured out what type of event we'll do in Portland yet. I've got some ideas about locations. I know some pastors. There's a number of people in the IDW atmosphere who are in the Portland area, so maybe we'll do something in Portland the evening of the 19th, and then the 20th that you guys then will be in Alameda. Is that Alameda will be the 20th, correct?
Well, either the 20th or the 21st, depending on, it's a bit of a stretch from Portland to the Bay Area, and it might be wiser to schedule that for Saturday, but okay. I know that has not been firmed up yet either.
Okay, so at the end of the week, at some point, there'll be a meetup in the Bay Area, and then on the 22nd, that's when our tour ends, and we're thinking about some creative things for John and Job participating at the Living Stones service at 11 o'clock on the 22nd. So if you're in Sacramento and want to have something special that day, they'll have something special that day, the 22nd at Living Stones. So that's the calendar. And Rod will be traveling with us in the car from Tucson to Southern California. And we'll just have a lot of car time together. Some people wanted videos that we take in the car. That sounds fun to me. That sounded terrible to Job. But I think it'll be great fun. Maybe we'll do some live tweeting from the car. We did that on a road trip from our meetup in Sacramento. So I'm just really looking forward to a lot of car time and a lot of living together and a lot of meeting people. And Job is afraid of shirtless volleyball, but I'm telling him it's probably a little too cold this time of year for shirtless volleyball. So
yeah, or you eat a gas station burrito you shouldn't have. It's just terrible.
A gas station burrito.
Maybe
so
that's how I got myself in my predicament.
That's right. So, we're not going to talk about that, John.
No, we're not.
We're not going to talk about that. So that's the rough schedule. And yeah, I wanted to make an announcement. A number of you have been asking about it. I mentioned it a little bit. So really the week of Southern United States, the first week of March, the third week of March, sort of California, north, all the way up to British Columbia. We'll have a series of events. Again, I'll put the dates down in the show notes. And that's what we're up to. Any comments about the trip? Anticipations, expectations, great fears and dread?
I hope my faith is enough to carry my car all the way there and back.
Okay. John and I both have old Suburbans. What's that?
But there might be shipwrecks.
Yeah. I think if the car breaks down, we'll just have additional stories to tell. So
yeah, I know.
I'm not worried.
It's like, I can just totally imagine. It's like, oh, the car breaks down somewhere, and then John's like, yeah, but I know this pastor from seminary back in 1940. We go way back. And then I don't know, I could just.
Yeah. John will pull some dairy farmer out of his, he'll pull a Rolodex, so you have to be old enough to know what a Rolodex is. He'll thumb through it. Oh, I know this guy. He's got cows.
Yeah. Oh, I fixed this guy's spa a couple of years ago.
So that's the plan. And I also wanted Job to talk a little bit about this podcast that you are starting with your pastor. So Job, tell us how this came about.
Well, that goes back to the Discord link below. The Discord server that we were on, at some point I just was in a voice channel, and one of the members was sort of telling his story of how he cleaned his room because of Jordan Peterson. And so I asked, so how'd that go? Tell me about it. And he started telling me a story. Then other people showed up, and that became a whole sort of live listening in to this person telling their story. And it was never recorded, which makes it even more special. And this person is, you know, is going to be happy to hear about that. But that sort of became a thing. Like people said, oh, can I also tell you my story? And I said, sure, but then I'd like to record them, and then I can maybe make a podcast out of it. And that sort of became also a thing through which this young Discord community got to know its members a little bit better, while they had time to just kind of listen to somebody talk. Because not everybody has time to just sit on the Discord like, you know, some computer programmers I know. So in this case, you know, people listen like when they weld, when they are out constructing, when they're doing the dishes. And I noticed that a lot of people just would come to me. I wouldn't even have to ask them. They'd DM me and say, hey, let's schedule a conversation. I really like this one you had with this other person. And, you know, I got this strange nickname of Discord pastor, but you learn to live with that. It's sort of a, you know, a burden you carry. And what I wondered is, well, what if I could do that with my own church? Because, as I've said before, when we had that four-way conversation with Rod, is that 2 years ago, I would have never stepped into a church, not in my life. If I listened back to my first conversation with you, I would have never walked into a church. That's for church people, not for me, a well-thinking, rational person. I'm not going to go into a church. And then I went in there and I didn't combust, so that was all good. But I also found out that all these people, they didn't really know their beliefs the way I thought they did. And they had their questions and their doubts and their just straight disagreements with church doctrine. But I also had conversations with people who found my advice very helpful. People outside the church who would never have come with me into a church, though. So I wondered, well, maybe I can use this podcasting thing to kind of take what's in here and place it outside and have people listen to it. And I approached my pastor and he said, let's do that. That sounds great. That makes us fulfill our missionary duty, and that's all great. So I set up a website, and I started to, my cat's old.
It's like a kid.
She's now confused because she's like 19 years old, so she's all confused. Anyway, a cat intermezzo. We figured we'd do a series of just in conversation with person name, and I talked to the previous head of the church council, and he was born in like 1947, so he could just talk about an hour on which the church how the church played a part in his life. And I just recorded the introduction episode with my pastor where we're like, well, how did this come to be? And what do we want this to be? And basically what we want it to be is theological discussions where he and I just kind of talk about, imagine it like this. So I do the intro jingle and I say, so I'm here with the pastor. Hey, pastor, I've always been kind of, interested in this whole idea of Christ dying on the cross, because they say that, well, it was a payment for our sins. But now I've read somewhere that people think, no, Christ actually died on the cross to trap death. And I'd never heard of that before. Could you tell me about that? So I can kind of be the questioner, and then through that we can have theological subjects, and then we alternate those with conversations with people. And so I set up that website, and then we figured, well, we got to get the word out. So we made some photos and we wrote a little bit of copy and we sent that to the local online newspaper for my village. And my village is 25,000 people. It's not that large. And then the local newspaper picked it up, like the paper and online, more like official newspaper. And then a Dutch newspaper picks it up for the region where I live. But this is like a national newspaper as well. And I didn't even know about this. Like my pastor sent me a text message saying, hey, you know, we're in this paper. Really? Like, yeah. So, I mean, I can show that. So here's that website. And then, well, there's my pastor and I, and some Dutch, and a link to the website. So there's the website, simple thing I set up with some placeholder message until the first one goes online this Saturday. And what surprised me the most is that apparently we're the first. Like, no church has done this before.
Wow. That's amazing.
There's like a podcast called The Unbelievable Podcast, which is more about just faith. But churches don't do this. And I think I'm starting to understand why. Because what I found on the Discord is that lots of young people, overall they're younger, or at least a certain type of openness, would come to me. And here I have to fish and pull and blackmail and badger to get people to come talk to me on this thing. And that was not what I expected at all. I thought I was so naive. I figured they'd just like, yeah, I'll come tell you my story. Oh, no. Not even the people who I have the deepest, most skeptical, metaphysical conversations with about faith and philosophy and ethics, and we trade books and we have great conversations over a drink. Not even them, and they were the first people I expected to come knocking at my microphone, basically. No, I was so wrong. I mean, it's not like I'm thinking this won't go anywhere, but I didn't expect this level of trepidation. And maybe once the first couple of episodes are out there, maybe, as we say in Dutch, once one sheep is across the dam, the others will come. I'm not lying, right? That's a phrase, right? You remember this.
Back from the old days.
Yeah.
Now, I think...
Eerste schaap over de dam is volgen er meer.
Precies.
Oh boy. I don't speak Dutch. Dutch is for the preachers and the lawyers. The Frisian told me that.
Fucking separatists. But yeah, let's forget I said that.
Is this why I told my afsluitdijk joke?
No, don't tell that joke. The name of the podcast is Hoorbaar Geloof, which translates to audible faith. Just something that popped into my head. And
I hope, Job, that once you get some of the early adopters or people who are high in openness to go on and tell their story, and then people in the church listen, some of what happened, because, similar things happened with my channel. I didn't plan to have a channel where people would be telling their stories. I backed into this crazy thing. But once people see that it's okay, nobody's, and actually it's a good thing, because if you have the people within the church share their stories, they're probably stories that other people in the church haven't heard. And then they'll be like, oh, I'm really excited to know her better or him better. And I learned something in that story that's really, that's why they bother to come together and do what they do and share their lives and all of these things. So maybe and then you might have the situation like I've had where suddenly lots of people want to tell, and it's like, ooh, we only have so many slots. And but that would be a good thing. So I'm hopeful that once people are reluctant if it's new, but once they see it happen, then a culture will develop and they'll open up and realize it's okay to share their stories, and it's okay to share their doubts and their questions and concerns. And I really hope this takes off for you guys in your church. And it doesn't just help. It doesn't just, I mean, your pastor might be thinking about, well, this is missional, so this is going outside. But I also hope that it brings more depth and texture to the life of your own congregation. You know, one of the things, you know, I posted today the conversation that I had with Voth yesterday. And one of the things that I realized, part of the reason I think the Discord server has taken off so well was exactly because of what you did with people. People shared their stories, and now their conversations with each other are so much richer. Whereas if you've just got a church service or a meetup group that meets a couple times a month or even every week, like a church service, you're in there, you do the church thing, the pastor does his little thing, you have your liturgy, you give. They might, you know, even after years, there are things people don't know about each other. But via the podcast here, this might add a whole new dimensionality to the life of the church. So I'm super excited for this, Job. And I wouldn't be surprised if after a while, people in the church begin to think this is an essential part of the life of our church, and it exposes the church. It opens up the doors and the windows of the church outside, and people can have a similar experience to you. I remember when you were first like, you know, do I go there? What are they thinking? What's going to happen? And now you understand that, no, you're not the only one who has questions and doubts, and not everybody knows everything, and you're the ignorant one. And I mean, all of that are just the projection of the people's fears. So I'm super excited about this podcast. And I really hope that it takes off and not only does what the pastor thinks in terms of outside, but enhances the life within your congregation.
Yeah.
Ditto.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Same here.
And maybe even Donk, you should take a page from Job, and because you would.
I knew that was coming.
You would do so well at this, John, because you're a story guy, and you know stories within your church, and just the way you write and share some of those stories in the articles that you've written. This could really be an amazing thing for your church as well. There's
and we have professional recording crew.
That's right. You wouldn't have to do the technical stuff.
No.
I'm excited. I think this is a whole new thing.
We'll have to talk to Don Porter about that.
We will talk to John Porter when we're in, and we can talk even earlier. Get this thing underway, Job. I'll do some scheming in your life for a change. So. All right. It's late in the Netherlands. Any last minute things that I didn't think of that anyone wants to say?
I am so looking forward to this, guys. You can't imagine. So this is going to be great.
Yeah, it'll probably be it'll probably be fine.
You'll be over your jet lag too, Job. By the time this all happens, you'll be over your jet lag. Yeah,
I remember that last time where we had that meetup where we crashed at your house, John, and I knew where the whiskey was stored, and that was just. But I was so jet lagged I just couldn't stay awake. But that was fun.
It was fun. Okay, stay on the line here, gentlemen. I'm just going to end the recording, but I'll have details down in the notes below on this video. And yeah, so stay tuned. We'll have more information coming out as everything solidifies on these dates. So
Discord, shout out to you guys.
Shout out to the Discord. One love. Okay, after I asked them for things that they've forgotten, John Van Donk waited until we were done recording. So John, what did we forget?
Well, I would like to have our audience realize that in Southern California we have a spare day, and if something could be organized on that Wednesday night, that we are very open to that, and that may require some initiative on the part of people who would like to see that happen, because we don't know exactly where the interest lies, but it would be helpful if people let that be known, so that if a venue is available on Wednesday night, we are able to squeeze in another meetup.
Yeah, I like mezcal, just so anyone knows.
Oh, there we have it.
All right.
Okay. So any other things? Am I going to have to record a third video and piece these all together?
You can do it, Paul.
Okay, I could do it. All right. Land the plane. One love.